Hello, this is Pastor John. Thank you for joining me. I was reading a story in the Bible from 1 Samuel chapter 30, and it's talking about David and his band of warriors who were camped out in this place called Ziklag. And while they were away from the camp, this whole band of Amalekites raided their camp and took away their wives and their children. And of course, when David and his army came back from where they were and saw what had happened, they were just beside themselves, torn up. Of course, David was feeling it as well. His wives and were part of that group that was taken off by the Amalekites. But then it turned really ugly because the men that were with David started to turn against him. In fact, they even talked about stoning him, it says. But it's interesting, as this conflict comes to David and he's mulling it in his heart, he's torn up about things. You can imagine, I can imagine what kind of despair that would be easy for me to fall into. But it says David did something different. Here's what it says in verse 6. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because all the people were bitter in soul, each for his sons and daughters. But, notice this, but David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. You see, when tough times come our way and we're struggling to just hold it together because, how could God allow this to happen? And all the questions we want to ask of him, we're tempted to go into despair, depression, whatever it may be. I'm sure you've experienced some of this in your life. Maybe you're going through it even now. But what David did, I think we all can do, and that is to strengthen ourselves in the Lord. In other words, David took it upon himself to be strengthened in his God, to think of what God can do, to know that God is there. He sees what's going on. He knows what to do. And David took consolation and comfort, and it brought peace to his heart, knowing that God was still with them. So David strengthened himself in the Lord. It's interesting, a few other places in the Bible it says that others did the same thing. King Jehoshaphat, the son, reigned over Israel, and he strengthened himself. In one case, in 2 Chronicles 17:1, in the battle of Judah, he was king of Judah actually, in their battle against Israel, this potential conflict they were having, Jehoshaphat strengthened himself, it says. A couple other places, people strengthened themselves in the Lord. So somehow along the way, God does leave it up to us to determine in our hearts and our minds that we're going to trust God in spite of the circumstances. We're going to put our life in his hands, and the direction that we go, what we decide to do, is going to be led by him. Because also, if you think about it, there's another direction we can go. We can do our own thing. We can start to murmur and complain and speak out against people and be critical. Yeah, that's an easy road to take. Our natures are very inclined to that. But that wouldn't be strengthening ourselves in God. It would be taking upon ourselves the responsibility to fix whatever problem we have. In fact, if you think about it, if there's such a thing as strengthening ourselves in the Lord, it also means there's such a thing as strengthening ourselves in wickedness, or maybe in Satan himself. In fact, I found one text. It says here, it says, Psalm 52:7, here is the man who did not make God his strength. So in other words, he didn't determine to make God the one that he is trusting, strengthen himself in the God he trusts. But it says he trusted in the abundance of his riches and strengthened himself in his wickedness. Wow. I want to strengthen myself today in God. I'm going to put my trust in the Lord no matter what the circumstances are. And I want to encourage you to do the same. Because God is with you, and as in the words of Paul, if God is with us or God is for us, what concern, what worry do we have? What can man do to us? We believe, we trust in the Lord our God. So trust in him this week. Strengthen yourself in the Lord.